in the morning.
Welcome back to our channel, everyone. Today is a truly beautiful day to dive deep into the tangled web of Genoa City. We have so much to unpack, so grab a warm cup of coffee, settle in, and let us explore the latest heart-stopping moments together. Thinking about Victor Newman, it is just so hard to wrap my head around what we are seeing unfold on our screens. The great Victor Newman, a man who usually crushes enemies without a second thought actually showing mercy. I mean, who would have ever thought we would see the day where Matt Clark, of all people, is given a second chance by the ruthless patriarch of the Newman family? It just feels so surreal, almost like a fever dream that you cannot quite wake up from. But when you really sit down and think about it, when you really let the heavy emotions of the past few weeks wash over you, it begins to make a strange, twisted kind of sense. Victor watched his son, his own flesh and blood, flatline. Nick was gone. The fentanyl, that horrible, tainted batch of drugs, it literally stopped his heart. And the sheer, unadulterated terror that must have gripped Victor's soul in that agonizing moment, I can barely even imagine it. As a parent, watching your child slip away into the darkness, it changes a person forever. It alters your very DNA. And the bitter, almost laughable irony of it all is that the hands that pulled Nick back from the absolute brink of death belonged to Matt Clark and Phyllis Summers. It makes you pause and wonder, how do you reconcile that? How do you look at the man who terrorized your family, who haunted your daughter-in-law's nightmares for years, and say thank you? But Victor is doing exactly that. I find myself feeling this deep, aching sympathy for Victor right now. He is a man torn between his legendary thirst for vengeance and the fragile, beating heart of his surviving son. Victor knows, he just knows deep down, that Nick cannot carry the weight of this vendetta anymore. Nick is broken. He is fighting a brutal war inside his own veins against an addiction that refuses to let go. Cocaine, fentanyl, it has ravaged his mind and his body. And Victor, in a moment of profound, heartbreaking clarity, realizes that if Nick continues to hunt Matt, if he continues to obsess over revenge and hatred, the addiction will ultimately win. The drugs will take him, and this time, there won't be a miracle to bring him back. So, Victor makes the ultimate sacrifice of his own pride. He gives Matt a chance. He looks at this broken, amnesiac man and says, "Prove it. Prove you are no longer the monster you used to be." And then there is Matt. When Noah recreated that shadow room, when he forced those horrific memories back into Matt's fractured mind, it was absolutely devastating to watch. I find myself feeling so incredibly conflicted. This is a man who committed unspeakable atrocities against Sharon, against Nick, against Sienna. But watching him now, watching the sheer horror dawn on his face as he realizes the absolute monster he used to be, it breaks something inside of me. You can see the physical revulsion in his body language. He is disgusted by his own reflection. He told Victor that the world would be better off without him, and you know he meant it. He truly, deeply meant it from the bottom of his soul. There is no manipulation in those eyes right now, only a crushing, suffocating guilt that is eating him alive. He just wants to do one good deed before he dies. He wants to balance the scales, even just a fraction of a millimeter. And Victor sees that raw, bleeding vulnerability. He sees a man who hates himself more than the Newmans ever could. But the thing that really, truly catches me off guard, the dynamic that I just cannot stop thinking about, is Phyllis Summers. She is standing there, facing federal prison, facing the absolute destruction of her entire life, her company, her freedom, and what is she worried about? Matt. She looks at Nick and asks, what happens to Matt if I go to prison? It is such a quiet, fragile moment. It reveals so much about who Phyllis really is beneath all that fiery, toxic armor she wears. She has become his protector, his caretaker. It is as if she looks at Matt and sees a reflection of her own brokenness. They are both pariahs. They are both hated by the Newmans, cast out, vilified by the town. And in that shared isolation, she has found this strange, fierce maternal or perhaps even romantic instinct to shield him from the wolves. I find it so incredibly moving, and yet so terrifying for her future. I keep turning it over in my mind, the legal chess game that is playing out behind closed doors. Phyllis is backed into a corner with nowhere left to run. Victor has that AI-generated evidence, those fake emails, the bribed executives ready to testify against her. Christine Romalotti is circling like a shark, sensing blood in the water, desperate to finally put her lifelong rival behind bars. Phyllis has always been a fighter. She never, ever surrenders without scorching the earth first. But this time it feels different. Nick is forcing her hand. He is putting the pressure on, trying to navigate this impossible situation to save everyone from more pain, and Victor holds all the cards. I really believe we are going to see Phyllis surrender Newman Enterprises this week. She will hand the keys back to the kingdom she fought so hard to steal, and in exchange, Victor will call off his attack dog. He will get Christine to back down, to drop the criminal charges. It is a bitter, jagged pill for Phyllis to swallow. Giving up the Summers conglomerate, admitting total defeat to Victor Newman, it will shatter her pride into a million pieces, but she will do it. She will do it for her freedom, and maybe, just maybe, she will do it so she can stay and protect Matt. Because let us be completely honest here for a second, the chemistry between Michelle Stafford and Roger Holworth is just off the charts. It crackles, it burns through the screen. Every single time they share a scene, you can feel this magnetic, undeniable pull between them. It makes my heart race just watching them navigate this bizarre, trauma-bonded relationship. Phyllis needs a project. She always needs something, or someone, to fix, to mold, to protect from the world. And Matt Clark, in his current shattered state, is the ultimate pet project. He is a blank slate wrapped in a living nightmare. He does not remember the worst parts of himself, and even now that the memories are bleeding back in, he rejects them entirely. Phyllis can look at him and say, I know what it feels like to have the whole world hate you. I know what it feels like to do terrible things and desperately want to be seen as something more than your worst mistakes. I cannot help but wonder, is this the beginning of a sweeping, tragic romance? To villains, to outcasts, finding solace in each other's arms while the rest of Genoa City looks on in absolute disgust. It would be so poetic, so beautifully, devastatingly poetic. Phyllis has lost so much lately. She lost Nick. She lost her company. She is constantly fighting to maintain her fragile relationship with Summer and Daniel. She is lonely. Deep down, beneath the bravado and the endless schemes, Phyllis Summers is a profoundly lonely woman. And Matt has absolutely no one in this world. Sienna wants him dead and buried. Sharon is terrified of his very shadow. The Newmans want him erased from the earth. Patty Williams is a chaotic, dangerous wild card who only brings destruction. Phyllis is the only person who looks at Matt and does not just see a monster. She sees a man who saved her ex-husband's life. She sees a man who is lost in the dark. And how must Nick feel about all of this? I try to put myself in his shoes, and it just makes my head spin with anxiety. He hates Matt with a fiery passion that spans decades. Matt tortured him, tortured Sharon, destroyed their peace of mind, and yet, Matt breathed life back into his failing lungs. Matt dragged him away from the blinding light of death. Nick is sitting in these outpatient rehab meetings, sweating through the agonizing fentanyl withdrawals, his body screaming for the drug. And his mind is just a chaotic mess of trauma and unwanted gratitude. He cannot kill the man who saved him. He just can't do it. And seeing his father, the great, unforgiving Victor Newman, actually give Matt a chance, it must feel like the ground is shifting beneath his feet. Nick forced Phyllis to make a deal, to give up the company, perhaps because he just wants all the fighting to stop. He wants the noise to quiet down so he can focus on surviving his own mind and getting sober. Sometimes I pause and ask myself, is Victor playing a longer, darker game here? Is this sudden mercy just another calculated move on his endless chessboard? Victor is a master manipulator. He knows that by granting Matt a reprieve, he is indebting Matt to him forever. He is also neutralizing a massive threat without having to get his own hands dirty, but I don't know. I really want to believe that there is a shred of genuine human grace in Victor's decision this week. Watching your child almost die, it strips away the ego. It strips away the armor you wear to protect your empire. Victor looked into the absolute abyss, and Matt Clark pulled his son back from the edge. You cannot just ignore that kind of profound intervention. You cannot just erase a life debt. Victor giving Matt a chance to prove himself is perhaps the most profound character growth we have seen from him in years. It is a quiet, stunning moment of vulnerability that leaves me breathless. But there is this lingering, suffocating dread that I cannot shake. What happens when Matt's memories fully integrate into his personality? Right now, he is horrified by them. He is treating them like a terrifying movie he was forced to watch about a stranger. But what if the darkness seeps back in? Sharon is so terrified. She is paralyzed by the fear that the monster is just sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake up and tear their lives apart all over again. I feel her terror. It radiates off the screen and settles in my chest. She survived Cameron Kirsten. She survived the award. She survived Matt Clark the first time. How much trauma can one woman's soul endure before it shatters completely? She looks at Matt, and she does not see a man trying to do one good deed. She sees the ghost of her own endless suffering. And she is right to be afraid. We are all afraid of what he might become. That is exactly why Phyllis's role in all of this is so incredibly vital right now. If Matt is going to survive this, if he is going to navigate the treacherous, stormy waters of his own fractured psyche without reverting to his old, evil ways, he needs an anchor. He needs someone who will not flinch when he talks about the darkness inside him. Phyllis will never flinch. She has lived in the darkness. She has danced with it for years. She can guide him through it. I really believe that Phyllis becoming Matt's protector is the only way this story does not end in absolute tragedy. She will fiercely defend him against Victor, against Nick, against the entire town if she has to. It gives her a purpose. It gives her a reason to keep fighting when she has lost everything else she held dear. And let us take a moment to really think about the legal resolution that is coming our way. Victor getting Christine to back off. Oh, the irony. The sheer, delicious irony of it all. Christine has spent her entire adult life trying to destroy Phyllis. She had the fake AI evidence in her hands. She could practically taste the victory she has craved for decades. And now Victor, the man who created the fake evidence in the first place, is going to pull the rug out from under her. He is going to call off the dogs because Phyllis made a deal to return his company. It must be so incredibly infuriating for Christine, but for Phyllis it is a lifeline. She will walk out of that corporate tower with nothing but her freedom, and she will walk straight into Matt's orbit. It is a reset. A complete and total reset for her character that opens up so many fascinating possibilities. I find myself just sitting back and sighing. The emotional toll the storyline has taken on all of us is just immense. We have watched Nick hit rock bottom, battling an addiction that came out of nowhere and consumed him entirely. We have watched Victor face his own mortality through his son's near-death experience. We have watched Phyllis lose her empire, only to find a strange, twisted kind of salvation in the arms of the town's most hated man. It is soap opera storytelling at its absolute finest. It is messy, it is complicated, it is deeply, painfully human. There are no clear heroes or villains anymore. Just broken people trying to survive the wreckage of their own choices. As we look toward the future, I cannot help but feel a spark of genuine excitement for this potential romance between Phyllis and Matt. Michelle Stafford brings such a raw, feral energy to Phyllis, and Roger Holworth's portrayal of this broken, remorseful, amnesiac Matt is just breathtaking to witness. When they look at each other, you can see 1,000 unspoken words passing between them. They are two sides of the same battered coin. If Phyllis truly makes him her pet project, if she dedicates herself to his redemption, we are in for a wild, unforgettable ride. Will Genoa City ever accept them? Absolutely not. But that is the beauty of it. It will be Phyllis and Matt against the world, and I am here for every single second of it. So, as we process the events of Wednesday's episode, let us just take a deep breath and appreciate the beautiful, chaotic mess that is unfolding before our eyes. Victor giving grace where none was expected. Phyllis finding a new, dangerous purpose. Nick fighting for his life and his sobriety, one day at a time. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, even when all hope seems lost, there is always a chance for redemption. There is always a chance to rewrite the narrative. I, for one, cannot wait to see where this journey takes us next. The tears, the heartbreak, the unexpected alliances, it is all part of the magic. And we will be right here, watching every single second of it unfold together.